Let us pray once more. Dear God, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So we're in the last section, the last 10 chapters of our 30-week Believe series. And in the first section, of course, we talked about our beliefs. In the second section, we talked about our spiritual practices. And in this section, this last section, we're talking about Christian virtues, Christian characteristics. What kind of people are we becoming? And we're using the fruit of the Spirit to talk about this. And the goal of all of this is to be like Jesus. That's the goal of the Christian life, is to be like Jesus. And so we've looked at love, and we've looked at peace, and we've looked at joy, and we've looked at hope, and we've looked at self-control. Today we're going to look at patience. And so today's key question is, how does God provide the help I need to deal with stress in my life? That's one thing we've been talking about a lot, is there's stuff. Stuff happens. Stuff happens to us. Even when we're believers, stuff happens to us. And joy talks about stuff that happens, and peace talks about stuff that happens, and even self-control talks about stuff that happens. And patience is no different. It's talking about the stuff that happens to us. And the key idea then is, I am slow to anger and endure patiently under the unavoidable pressures of life. That is, through the patience that God gives me and grows in me, I endure the hardships and pressures of life. Our key verse is Proverbs 14:29. Whoever is patient has great understanding, but one who is quick-tempered displays folly. Now, as with all of these, we have to get a biblical definition. Because we have kind of a worldly definition, the way we usually use the word patience. And there's a biblical definition that's a little bit different than that. Usually it's kind of a magnified version of that. As with hope, as with joy, as with peace, as with love. We need to get a biblical definition of the word word patience. Now, I want to tell you from the outset that well, let's get the definition up first, then I'll say that. Let's go back to the Greek. The New Testament was written in Greek, and so these words were originally Greek, and so the Greek words have a meaning of their own that's sometimes not directly translatable into English. The Greek word that's used for patience, that we usually see translated patience, is markothymia. Markothymia. The word Marco means long, like mark, measured, right? The word thymia means heat, like thermo, like thermostat, like thermometer. So the word is long heat, or long burning, right? Like a long burning fuse, or like a thermostat that's set really, really high, right? So that it doesn't. What does a thermostat do? A thermostat goes off, right? For lack of a better word. When the temperature reaches a certain point, bam, the thermostat kicks in. So that's what these words are related to. It's also translated long suffering, the ability to suffer for a long time. So patience, the biblical definition, is kind of having a long fuse, or having the ability to suffer for a long time. I need to tell you that usually the picture we Americans, we North Americans, moderns get when we use the word patience is the picture that most of you have in your mind is kind of the doctor's waiting room, where you're kind of sitting with your magazine and you're kind of waiting. I'm going to tell you that is a very far distant from the kind of patience we're talking about. That is preschool patience. The ability to just kind of sit quietly in a doctor's waiting room and call that patience. Yeah, a big deal. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about suffering. We're talking about hardship. We're not talking about listening to your annoying neighbor describe their boring vacation for the 10th time. That's a good thing to be able to do, but that's preschool stuff because that's not suffering. Biblical patience is patience under suffering. So, why should we be patient? We should be patient because God is patient. 2 Peter 3:9, the Lord is not slow in keeping his promise, as some understand slowness. Right? So let me give you the context here. Peter, as with all the apostles, had been preaching that Jesus is coming back, that the kingdom is coming. And it's been a while since Jesus died and rose. And so people are starting to ask, hey, Peter, where's this Jesus you were telling me about? Why isn't he back yet? What's taking him so long, Peter? Peter says, hey, chill out. First, God didn't tell you when he was coming back, so God ain't late. God ain't late. Everybody say, God ain't late. God ain't late. I know that's incorrect English, but it's still fun. God's not late. Instead, he is patient with you, not wanting anyone to perish, but everyone to come to repentance. See, one day, God's going to stop the clock. Right? Think back to Friday night that you and I gave. The clock's going to stop. And if you don't shoot the ball before the clock stops, guess what? It doesn't count. And so there's going to be people, brothers and sisters, when God stops the clock that aren't part of the kingdom because they haven't chosen to believe. And when the clock stops, they're going to get left out. God does not want that to happen. And so God is patiently waiting. He's got his hand on the button. He's got the whistle in his mouth. But he's waiting. He's waiting for people to come to him. So the reason why this hasn't happened yet, the reason why we've been in a 2,000-year overtime, is because God is patient. God is waiting for people to come to him. Praise God that it hasn't happened yet, because many of us wouldn't be here. But it will happen one day. And that's what we're waiting for. So, I want to suggest that there's three kinds of patience. There's patience with situations, and the verses I gave you, I'm not going to read them. James 5, 7 through 10 talks about a farmer. Right? Talk about situation patience. Because, you know what? The farmer can plant, and the farmer can water, and the farmer can fertilize, and the farmer can till. But you know what a farmer can't do? A farmer can't make corn grow. There is nothing within the repertoire of technology and skill that's available in modern agriculture, even all these years later, that can make corn grow. It just doesn't. And we can't make it go faster. It happens when it happens, and when it's ready, we harvest. And sometimes we drive our combines through the snow here in Iowa. But, again, out of our control. We just have to wait. We have to be willing. Patience with situations is being willing to let the situations play themselves out. One of the things I've been trained in as a pastor is that I'm responsible for process, not outcome. I'm responsible for process, not outcome. God has us in a process. And since it's God's process, if we see the process through, we will get God's outcome. But we have to be patient with the process. We have to trust that God's process will achieve God's outcome. By the way, that's something I'm really good at, patient with situations. Go back to the waiting room. I'm a pretty good waiting room guy. And you know what? I've got an iPhone now, so I don't care where I'm sitting. Right? That, by the way, what you experience in the doctor's office is not impatience, it's boredom. Let's tell the truth. It's not impatience, it's boredom. Find a way to get over your boredom. And get an iPhone, they're wonderful. Right? But patience with situations is something I'm pretty good at. Here's something I'm not so good at personally, it's patience with things. I just expect things to work. Right? I can endure situations, I can reason with people, but those things, man, are just those machines, right? They just get on my nerves. And I'm a pretty technical person, but man, when my technology doesn't work, I get hot under the collar. And we stand in front of microwaves, ovens, brothers and sisters, we're the first generation on the planet to stand in front of a microwave oven and say, come on, come on. Patience with things. Because here's the thing. This, by the way, this trips us up the most, but it is probably the most insane. Because when you yell at your microwave, I've yelled at my microwave, I've yelled at my computer, I've yelled at my television. I've never had my microwave say, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, try harder. Does that hurt my microwave? When I yell at my microwave, does that hurt my microwave's feelings? Well, of course not. Who does it hurt? It hurts me. It's me with the high blood pressure. It's me with the elevated heart rate. It's me with the stress hormones. Right? It hurts me. Finally, patience with people. Ephesians tells us to be humble and gentle and patient, bearing with one another in love. Because you know what? Show of hands, who in here is messed up? Who in here is messed up? Okay? I hope you know each other well, because this next question, show of hands, who here would say the person next to you is messed up? I see that hand. God bless you.
You're all right, Bruce.
I see that hand. God bless you.
You're all right, Bruce.
Let's cut each other some slack, shall we? Because we're all messed up. Forgiveness lies at the heart of our relationship with God, and it lies at the heart of our relationship with each other. God is patient and forgiving with us, and we should be patient and forgiving with others, knowing that everybody's got their own bag of stuff, and they've got different stuff in their bags than we do. But let's cut each other some slack. Adel Bestravras, I've pronounced that 3 different ways this morning. He is an Egyptian Christian and scholar. He says that patience with others is love. Right? The call to love one another includes forgiving one another, being patient with one another, and understanding that the other is just as messed up as you are, but perhaps in different ways. Patience with self, boy, there's our problem, isn't it? Isn't it? Everybody say amen. Amen. There's our problem. Patience with self is hope. Hope that I'm becoming something better today than I was yesterday through the grace of God. And patience with God is faith. Believing that God is going to do what God said He is going to do for me, for you, for the universe. Believing that God is going to do what God said He was going to do. That's patience with God. It's called faith. So what difference does all this make? What difference does it make if I have patience in my life? Well, first of all, enduring in patience and trusting Christ helps us see that whatever God unfolds will always be better than what we try to force to happen. You see, at the root of impatience is mistrust. If you've got a patience problem, you've got a faith problem. If you've got a faith problem, you've got a God problem. Because at the root of all this, it says, I need to make things happen. I can't trust God to do what God said He's going to do. I can't trust God to care for me. I can't trust God to look out for me. I got to go out there. I got to make it happen. I got to do it now. I got to get it done. Does that sound like a healthy life to you? It doesn't to me. Now, of course, patience doesn't mean sitting around, right? We're not in the waiting room. We're out in the world doing things. But our trust is not in us and the things we do. Our trust is in God. Enduring in patience and trusting Christ helps us see that receiving something later is often a far better plan than receiving it now. Patience is a virtue that carries a lot of weight. Patience is a virtue that carries a lot of weight. That's spelled W-A-I-T. Wait. During the 1960s, psychologist Walter Mischel conducted what became known as the marshmallow test with 4-year-olds in the preschool at Stanford University. Now, I know we don't like Stanford, but this is where it is. But I want to remind you that this is the Harvard of the West Coast. Right? So these kids we're talking about at this preschool at Stanford University, these are the professor's kids. These kids don't come from no slouch families, but listen to this experiment. Some of you may have heard of this. The object of the exercise was to assess each preschooler's ability to delay gratification. Each child was given one marshmallow. They were told that they could eat it immediately, or if they waited until the researcher returned in 20 minutes, they could have 2 marshmallows. Some kids in the group just couldn't wait. They gobbled down the marshmallow immediately. The rest struggled hard to resist eating it. They covered their eyes, talked to themselves, sang, played games, even tried to go to sleep. I've seen the video of this test. The preschoolers who were able to wait were rewarded with 2 marshmallows when the researcher returned. 12 to 14 years later, the same kids were reevaluated. The differences were astonishing. Those who had been able to control their impulses and delay gratification as 4-year-olds were more effective socially and personally as teenagers. They had higher levels of assertiveness, self-confidence, trustworthiness, dependability, and a superior ability to control stress. Remarkably, their scholastic aptitude tests, their SAT scores, were also 210 points higher than the instant gratification group, who I can only assume went on to be part of the Stanford marching band. A key difference between successful people, leaders, and those who struggle just to get by, it's a disciplined life. It's a disciplined life. It's the ability, like we said, self-control, the ability to say no to oneself. Delayed gratification is the greatest thing we can teach our kids. And as this world becomes more and more instant, and as our children are pressured to be more and more instant, if we can teach them to delay gratification, they will be even more successful than their peers. Delayed gratification is the greatest thing we can teach our kids. Enduring in patience and trusting in Christ helps us see growth in our trust of God. I want you to pray for patience, but it comes with this warning. Patience is not simply zapped. It's grown, it's developed, it's built. Anybody here want muscles? If you want muscles, you go to the gym, right? That's where you get them. You go to the gym. God's not going to zap you with muscles. I got bad news. God's not going to zap you with patience either. God's going to take you to the gym. God's going to pump you up. And it'll be hard, but it'll be worth it. Let us pray.